we're talking about profit margin, not just volume. Number one was about focusing on more volume, more sales volume. When you start lowering prices or offering discounts, it forces you to work harder for even less. Thriving in Tandem. It's a podcast for you, the married entrepreneur that wants to win in business and marriage at the same time.
Welcome to Thriving in Tandem.
Hello and welcome back to Thriving in Tandem. And I thought you were going to say something.
I was. You should give me a pause.
I paused.
Hi, family.
So today we're going to talk about 5 common business mistakes that are causing you to work harder and you're losing money at the same time.
Oh, no. We don't want that.
5 common mistakes. Obviously, we've talked a lot about this before, but we're going to try and condense this and summarize this into one podcast and to hopefully give you some real practical guidance on what to focus on today or maybe tomorrow, the next work day, to start really being able to thrive in tandem with your spouse, to have better work-life balance. I mean, these are the things that are causing you. It's not just, as I said, not just that your business, it stops you or stunts your growth stunts the growth of the business, but it's costing you time with family. Your work-life balance is totally out of whack because you're spending more time than you want to in the business. And so personal life, marriage life, your business life, these common mistakes are affecting all of that.
Yes, because we want you to have a profitable business and a thriving marriage.
And so let's get right to it. Okay, honey? So top 5. The first one, focusing on volume, not margin. Now, why do we not have the freedom in the business that we want? Because we're working a lot of hours, right?
That's all we're doing.
And so in order to grow the business, right, so that it's healthier, has more higher profitability, so that you can hire more people and then take a step back to be able to have the freedom that you desired, we're focusing on driving more volume, right?
Yes.
Because with more sales, then hopefully there's more profitability. Although we don't have time to go in today, we actually will tackle this a little bit, how that's a faulty mindset of focusing on volume, that sales is the answer. Now, my first job out of college was with Coca-Cola. Now, you don't remember that because I hadn't met you yet.
No, I wasn't born yet.
You were definitely born yet. And the mantra in the sales office was sales cures everything. That was from our branch manager.
You can still remember that. That's good.
Well, yeah, because I remember he said it all the time.
Oh.
Sales cures everything. Sales cures everything. So, you're running discounts and all these promotions and all that. Sales cures everything. But what was so short-sighted about the branch manager is he didn't run the finances. It's like you're just focusing on sales. I mean, he's
just focusing on numbers.
Yeah, his job is just to drive sales.
Who knows if you're profitable or not?
And so, anyways, I remember that got grained in my mind. And I think just business in general, that's grained in business owners' mind is drive sales. And that will take care of the business, the profitability, and everything else that is ailing the business. And so, we have this, more mentality, more sales, put more time in, especially when we talk about time. Or focusing, not even just talking about money, but even talking about time, we're focusing on more time, not about margin. So one more sales call, get one more lead, spend one more hour, right? One more fill in the blank.
Well, eventually you run out of it, time.
Yeah, because just time itself, right? We only have, everybody, no matter who you are, only has 24 hours in a day. And so, yes, at some point we do reach a limit and you do have to sleep. Go ahead.
And I was going to say your productivity goes way down.
Yeah, because you get mentally less alert. And of course, you're going to get fatigued.
You're tired.
I mean, I know when I'm just sitting in front of the computer for all day, I'm wiped. And I can tell towards the end of the day, especially Friday. Today is Friday. Especially Friday, when you hit 3:00, you're done. Mm-hmm. And so, we don't work, 80 hours a week. So I can't imagine, trying to push through. So, that mindset of more, I think starts even with, when we're younger. I think we learn from our parents. And then, of course, in sports, one more lap, one more sprint, an extra hour of practice. School's the same thing. Spend extra time studying, going to even hiring a coach or what do you call it, tutor. Spending more time in schoolwork, studying to get better grades. And so everything is built around more. But it's not about more volume, putting more time in. I want you guys to think about getting more margin. How do you get more out of the time that you put in?
Well, yeah, because if you just keep putting more and more time in, that doesn't mean you're more and more productive.
Exactly. So when we talk about sales, I talked about sales calls, leads, and all that. Well, focus on margin, which really speaks into how do you get more sales for the leads that you get, right? So it's basically higher conversion rate. And
keeping track of that.
Yeah. And instead of one more hour doing whatever in business, it's like, okay, how can we maybe get more of this stuff done? And a lot of it can come from some automation and apps and softwares, or, hiring some assistants that we'll get into later. But, how do you get more done in a shorter period of time? And so focusing on the margin, how do we do it better? How do we get more accomplished with the time we put in? And that's kind of the mindset you need to have. So that means more margin, because when you get more done in the same amount of time, that means you have that extra time to spend time with your spouse, your family, right?
Yes, and who doesn't want that?
And then number 2 is lowering prices or discounting to attract more customers. So of course, this goes back to my Coke days. Always offering discounts. I remember the sales team was always talking to the branch manager about offering discounts for their best customers, so they'll buy more. And so we kind of use pricing as a marketing method to attract customers. And that can happen, although most business owners tend to use it the opposite in which it works.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get to just, the whole discounting thing. And, we're talking about profit margin, not just volume. Number 1 was about focusing on more volume, more sales volume. When you start lowering prices or offering discounts, it forces you to work harder for even less. So let's say you have 50% gross profit margin and you give a 20% discount. That cuts your gross profit margin by 40%.
That's huge. That's
right?
A lot of money. That's like almost your whole profit there.
Yeah. So if you have a gross profit margin of 50%, if you discount your sales price by 20%, that means now your gross profit margin is 30% instead of 50. So that's a 40% cut. That means you're going to have to sell almost twice as much as normal to reach the same profitability as before the discount.
Which so many people do not realize this. They don't do the numbers correctly, and they have no idea where they're at when they're given these huge discounts.
So
they could be losing money.
Yeah. So think about that. How much more work when you're offering, maybe cutting your price or offering discounts, you got to do the math and say, how much more work do I have to do? How much more sales, how much more customers and clients do I have to gain just to get back to the same profitability as before the discount? This isn't even talking about getting more, right? And so now you really just to make a little bit more profit as before the discount, you do have to sell twice as much in this case.
Well, is that even doable? Do you have the manpower? Are you able to give all that product? I can't think of the word. Produce all that.
Yeah. Yeah. So think about that. Yeah, exactly. So what is that extra volume that you have to produce? How does that impact your workload, your capacity? And you have to ask the question, can we do it?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not going to be able to hire more people to take up the additional workload.
No, because you're making less money.
Right.
Yeah,
there's less money.
There's no margin to hire anybody.
Yeah, in the short term, you're actually making less money until you get the volume up so much that you actually get over par. And so, yeah, this just really all this does is stress the organization.
Well, and I think a lot of times it puts people in the negative because they don't realize what their numbers are and how little of a margin that they're making, and that sometimes they're going the opposite way.
Yeah. So the pricing and discount, all that does is forces you to work more. That's all it does. Now, you can talk about how, some of the big chains, grocery stores or retailers, like Robert, well, they do discounts and they have these 70, 80%, 90% off stuff, right? Well, those are a little bit different than what the typical business owner does. So when you see these big discounts with the big chains or the big retailers, what they're doing is they're taking out of, out of stock item, not out of stock items, but items that are going out of season. So let's talk about retail or clothing stores, Macy's, Nordstrom's, you name it. So they have seasons in retail, right? So the clothes are seasonal. You don't sell jackets in the summertime, and you don't sell bathing suits in the wintertime, right? So you have to turn over the inventory. And so what happens is when you have these excess inventory as you go into the new season, you got to do something with it. Either you get rid of it and totally eat it, or you offer severe discounts to attract people to come in and buy them, even if it's at a discount and even at a quote unquote loss. Number one, you're getting something back. But number two is they're getting you in the door so that you can buy some in-season items.
Well, and the other thing with that too is they know in mind that they're going to have to put a lot of this stuff on sale. So they make it even more expensive at the beginning so that when they put it on sale, they're still making money.
That can happen, but typically that's not the case. It's really more about it's better to make some money back than lose it all.
Okay.
And they're using it again to attract customers because yes, lower price can attract more customers, but they don't sell the in-season items at a discount. And so if you notice when you walk through the store, they don't put the clearance rack in the front. They put it in the back or in the middle or something. It forces you to walk through the store so that your eye hopefully will catch something that's in season that you'll pay full price on. So
that's true. That's just the dress shop that I worked at. They would really increase the prices at the beginning.
Yeah.
When they first put them out.
Oh, you mean like when they're in season?
Yeah. When they're in season, it would be more than double.
Oh yeah.
Because they knew they were going to put it on sale if they didn't sell it at the end of the season. And so they're hoping people are going to pay the higher price. But if not, when it's on season, out of season, and on sale, they're still making money. They're not actually losing it.
Yeah, so that's talking about margin, right? They're pricing enough to make margin because you do have to account for the fact that there are going to be, 5-10% of inventory that's going to go to a season that you're going to lose money on. And so you need to be able to account for that. So there's going to be 2 to 3% of just total loss. And there's going to be some of that percentage where you can actually make some money back, even if it's just breaking even. So but the key is they do use it as a carrot to bring people in to buy in-season items because then they make the most money off of those, right? And so, yeah, that does bring up a good point about, depending on the kind of business you have, especially if you're in a food business or any business where there's potentially going to be waste, right? Any product-based business that there's potential of going to waste or you have to do some refunds, it's broken, whatever, you have to account for that. And that's baked into the price or in the profit margin, because otherwise, if you don't, you're going to be hurt. And so it's not as nefarious as it sounds, as my wife was bringing up, how they mark it up. Yes, you're always going to mark up a price over cost so you make money. And you do have to account for potential loss down the road. And so that is another issue where a lot of smaller businesses, especially when they're starting out, don't do. Because that goes to number 3 is not tracking your metrics or your financials. Because if you don't, you just end up doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, right? If our sales volume is pretty good, but we're still barely making profit or barely breaking even, what's our go-to? It's still going to be more sales versus if you're talking about what you brought up, honey, about, loss, any product loss. If you don't account for that, you're not going to price your products with enough margin to deal with it, right? And that comes from tracking. So metrics in this case is, you got X amount of inventory, and at the end of the season or the end of the year, you track, okay, how much inventory got wasted? How much did we recoup at a discount or how much totally just got wasted? Food, big one, right? Every day in a restaurant is going to have to waste some food.
And that adds up really quickly.
So you want to order just as much as you think you need, which is challenging because you can't forecast perfectly in a restaurant.
And you don't want to be running out all the time, even though you do want to sell what you have.
But I'd rather run out than have excess inventory.
Right.
And so we've been to restaurants where I've been disappointed because the item I picked on the menu, they're out of.
Or you went to, you ahead of time, you thought, oh, I'm going to have that lasagna. And then you get there and they're like, oh, we're sorry, we're out of it.
Yep, we've done that. And so, but I understand, right? It's better to run out than have excess and lose. And so, scarcity brings, more demand. It's like, okay, I got to come back next time, right? Or come back early, make it earlier dinner reservation or something like that. So, following metrics can be so boring, especially for the average business owner. And I can be guilty of this. I can be guilty of this too. I don't like looking at metrics, although it's
like
very
numbers.
important. I do, but it can be tedious. That's not like,
not like
for what we do. I like recording the podcasts. I like, writing our e-blasts and stuff like that.
Looking at the financials.
I don't want to follow the metric to see, how much engagement we got. And if we don't, why, although I know it's important. So I do it because that does help provide some guidance on, number one, what to produce. So from a content creator, right, the engagement, the data, the metrics kind of tells you based on the audience engagement, the likes, the comments, shares, and all that, it tells you what type of content and titles and topics people want to hear more of.
And we need to know that in the long run.
Yeah. And it makes for hopefully better content because we're giving people exactly what they want. So
that's what you want to hear.
Otherwise, you're just pushing out content, and some stuff might hit, some doesn't, right? And then by the way, if you like this episode, email us at info@powercouplesbydesign.com. And hey, we might even give you a free gift.
Oh, free gifts. Who doesn't want a free gift?
So anyways, data, metrics.
Wait, so what's the website again, in case I didn't get it the first time?
I give my email address.
Okay, well, what's the email address?
info@powercouplesbydesign.com.
There you go.
And so the data helps give you guidance, and it helps you improve your performance too. So like even when you're talking about, again, going back to sales, instead of more sales is what if you improve performance?
And give them what they want, as opposed to just guessing.
Well, that, and like if I'm running down some of the metrics, like if I'm following email open rates, for example, 20% email open rate. So 20% of the people that the email goes to, 20% of them actually open up the email. Well, if you're already gaining some sales through email marketing, what if you went it from 20% to 25%? That's a big jump. That's a 20% jump. Yes, it's a 20% jump in email open rates, which means even if the sales conversion rates stay the same of the people that read the emails, you're going to automatically increase your sales 20% just by increasing your open rates. And that is just as simple as getting better with the titles that you put, or subject lines that you put on, because that's how people gauge if they should open up the email, right? So that's a great example of looking at the metrics and said, if we bump it up from 20 to 25%, what would that do? If we increased our website conversion rates from 0.8% to 1.2%, it doesn't sound like a lot, but
that's a big hop.
But that's actually 50%. That's actually a 50% jump. Yes, exactly. So 0.8% to 1.2% doesn't sound like a lot, but when you do it by percentage wise, it's actually huge. And so those are some examples of how we've helped some of our clients in the past, is just improving the metrics. And then it sounds boring. It sounds like, oh, there's no creativity or marketing behind it, but actually it is, because in order to improve those metrics, you do have to improve your marketing effort. So when it comes to website conversion, it's probably the sales copy on the landing page, or maybe a redesign or reformatting of the landing page. There's a lot of artistic and creative aspects that go into improving the metrics. The metrics just tell you what's wrong. Then the creative process fixes it.
Yeah, that's when, after you find out what's wrong, then the creativity.
Yeah, so a lot of people think, metrics is boring. It's just too analytical. There's no creativity. But all it does is help you focus your creativity.
And a lot of times people do not pay attention to the metrics.
Yeah. So number four, too cheap to hire. right? Especially when you're a small business or maybe you're working for yourself. We don't have the money. It's kind of a chicken and egg question. I don't have the money to hire, but it's almost like you need to hire to make more money. Let's put it this way.
And when we say that, we're not necessarily talking about you hiring a full-time person.
Yeah. And it could be just like these days, again, we've talked about this before with virtual assistants, so prevalent. There's a lot of agencies out there, a lot of websites out there which you can find good virtual assistants, anywhere from marketing to administrative assistant to bookkeeping, all that stuff. But let's say you just have an administrative assistant, executive assistant, that you hire a virtual assistant at $20 an hour for 10 hours a week. Now that's $200 a week or $800 a month. And it sounds like a lot, but if you look at it more as an investment, it says, okay, with that extra 10 hours a week, what can I, if I do something productive with that 10 hours a week, like just going and get more clients, right? Doing more sales calls or whatever. If you land, at least for us, I'll just speak for us. If we land one extra client, not just a week, just one extra client that month that we meet with weekly, that's a net of $300 a week for us, or $1,200 a month. Right?
Yeah, that really adds up.
And so that $800 a month actually nets us $1,200. So that's a pretty good return, wouldn't you say?
I say it's fabulous.
And depending on the kind of project, I'm just talking kind of a low price project. But if some of our higher ticket projects, right, it'll be a lot more. Multiply that number. And so that's just 10 hours a week, gaining one extra client a month for us, right? So you do the math for yourself and say, hey, with that 10 hours a week, multiply what the hourly rate is, however much money you spend, but the time it frees up, if I can do this type of work in the business that will actually lead to growth in the business, is it worth my while at that point? Right? So a lot of times we can be too cheap to hire because we don't look at the investment that it is versus just an expense.
Yeah, we're just looking at it as an expense and that's it.
Yeah.
Not any further down the road about being able to grow or expand and be able to do the things that you love to do, be in your zone of genius and out making money.
Yeah. And then number 5, the last one that goes along with number 4, is not willing to train. Even though you have a virtual assistant or you hire a marketing assistant or someone, a lot of people want someone that's already fully trained.
Yeah, as entrepreneurs, we are so impatient. Oh my gosh, it's crazy.
Yeah, we don't want to train.
We want them just to come already trained and just throw them in 5 minutes and up and running, and they're able to
especially
do it all
like,
by themselves.
Especially like with marketing, right? They want someone that's already fully trained, really great at what they do and all that kind of stuff, which is great. But then you look at how much someone with a lot of experience that's produced great results, how much is that going to cost you? Right? It's going to cost probably a lot. Versus identifying someone that may not be the breadth of experience of a lot of marketing professionals, but is at least as good in one area. Let's just say email marketing. Let's just say they're good at writing copy. They're not good at doing social media and web design or those kind of stuff, but maybe they're good at email marketing, writing copy. That's worth hiring somebody to do, and that's less than 10 hours a week. But if they get results, get more people to open up, get people to convert in sales off of the emails, those kind of things can pay huge dividends. But also think about training them in other things, because especially if they're detail oriented, maybe they can help you with some other aspects of your administrative or operational aspect of your business that you can potentially train them to do more of. And that's going to take some time, right? And that's, again, we talked about a lot of business owners can be impatient. So you kind of have to think about, well, maybe your spouse can train them if their spouse is working in the business, or, could there be somebody else that can do the training? But you're going to say something.
Well, I wanted to circle back around to, if you hire a seasoned marketer thinking you don't have to train them, that could be true, even though they're a lot more money, but they're going to want you to spend time with them so you can tell them all about the business, what they need to know. They just can't step in off the street and just take over and be successful. You need to spend time with them to let them know what's going on in your business. And bring them up to speed. And they're going to have if they're like us as consultants, we've got all kinds of questions for our clients that we ask before we even start with them.
Yeah. And even when they're like, we have some marketing help, like say we have a producer for the podcast, and then we also have somebody that does the editing to put the video on YouTube. And so this is just a real life issue just happened yesterday is, they pop the video, they do some editing, the introductions and all that. And then they have like a thumbnail. They create a graphic for the thumbnail for people as they're scanning YouTube can see and hopefully stop and attract their attention. Right. And so just yesterday, in fact, I saw the new episode got released. I looked at the thumbnail and I said, hey, I can't really read the title. Right. And then, hey, our image is a little too small. We can't really see. And so, I messaged them and said, hey, let's make this change. And even a couple months ago, we made some other changes. And so they're good at what they do. But even then, there's some nuances that can get missed because you're doing things on a day-to-day basis. And so still requires my effort to at least pay attention. 99% of the time, I don't have to say anything, but every once in a while, I'll spot something. And also, because we're fairly new working with them, they need to identify our style, what I'm looking for. So they do great work in general, but then now they got to adapt to our style, and that takes a little bit of time.
Because every business is different, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's the same.
Yeah. So it doesn't mean they're not good at what they do. It's just we got to learn how to work together. And so same thing would go if you hire an administrative assistant or executive assistant. They could be fully qualified, but it doesn't mean they're going to be able to just go in and just run with it and, not make any mistakes or, not do things the way you like it done or whatever. And that just takes some communication and some ongoing training. And so you can't shy away from that.
You're going to have to tell them what your values are, what you're wanting, what your expectations.
Yeah. So that's the 5 common business mistakes that are keeping you not only stunning your growth, but it's also costing you time with your spouse and family. So if you address these 5 areas, you will see an improvement, right? And so thank you for listening. If this was really meaningful for you, this episode was meaningful for you, please share this with another married entrepreneur that could use this, right? Because we can all use a little bit of help. So thank you and God bless, and we'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to the Thriving in Tandem podcast. Please visit our website, marriedentrepreneur.co, for a variety of free resources to help your marriage and business succeed.
And feel free to leave us a review and share this episode with another married entrepreneur. That would mean so much to us.
See you next week.